from being brought into the hospital. Honorable Speaker, the committee made the following recommendations: that the Director of Criminal Investigation to urgently finalize investigations on this unfortunate death and recommend appropriate action with a view of establishing and holding accountable the person responsible for the death of Mr. Gilbert Kenywa. 2, that the Board of Kenyatta National Hospital to audit the hospital's internal security systems within 1 month so as to identify possible security breaches, in particular internal security threats, and come up with mitigation measures for necessary implementation. The report of the audit to be shared with the committee, which shall access the areas that may be allocated funds during the budgetary process. In conclusion, the matter is actively before the committee. Further, the matter is under investigation by the Director of Criminal Investigation, and the suspect is still under the custody of the hospital. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, you've listened to the statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I had noticed that the committee were at Kenyatta National Hospital while I was away at Pan-African Parliament. But my question is not fully answered. But let me deal with the issue of Gilbert Kenywa. The family actually got in touch with me when I was in South Africa and asked, what do we do? The hospital has said they're going for a postmortem and we need to have our own doctor. I quickly got in touch with a few doctors and I managed to get the family a doctor to represent them and settle the money of 25,000 for them to be able to have their own independent doctor. They want, the Kenyatta National Hospital has waived they've waived the hospital fee as well as the mortuary charges. But what I'm a bit concerned about is this is not the first time that we're having a death in Kenyatta National Hospital. We had one on 29th of November 2015, Mr. Cosmos Mutunga was found dead. And now that we have the second incident at Kenyatta National Hospital, I believe that from the first one to the second one, if we had improved the security at that point, then why is it that that particular ward was not covered with CCTV? I want to know whether the CCTV cameras 331 were installed after the incident of Gilbert or after the incident of Mr. Cosmos Mutunga. We also have another incident that happened in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Eldoret. Mr. Albert Chisang he was missing from the hospital bed, and then on the 29th of January he went missing from the hospital, and then on the 9th of February his body was found decomposed near the hospital. So right now my biggest concern and the question that I asked is, what are we doing about investigations? I know it is probably not the Ministry of Health that does the investigation, but we have to have a multi-sectorial approach, because the investigations are what are going to be able to help us improve the quality and duty of care for the patients, the staff of the hospital. The second thing that I want to ask is, what about compensation? Here you are today. The family is looking for over 400,000 to give their loved one a burial, and they don't even have that money. They didn't even have the money for the postmortem to have an independent doctor. In this particular case, what is the duty of care? What is the compensation that the family is going to get? Because Susan is young with 2 young children. It's not enough just to waive the hospital bill and to waive the mortuary charges. They have a burial. They also have children that need to go to school. They have counseling needs for the entire family. So since the government should be culpable, what are the compensations? Do they have insurance? Is there a way and a mechanism to compensate this family, not just this one, but all the other families? And what is the status of the investigation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Dr. Bukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I hear the Honorable Esther Passaris. I think the basic facts that we should be able to put in place is that Gilbert Kenywa was paralyzed before being admitted in the hospital. He had Guillain-Barré syndrome, severe form, where he could not move his limbs, both the hands and the legs. And he was paralyzed in the hospital and being fed with a tube.
Is he responding to what you have asked?
And being fed with a tube. the hospital was taking care of him. The hospital has cooperated with the DCI in terms of investigations that are ongoing, so that the culprit can be brought into book and the justice be delivered. I don't think at this stage we should be discussing the issue of compensation. There is a mechanism for which compensation can be sought. And at this stage, I think it is too premature for us to start thinking of compensation. Secondly, you've asked about the CCTV cameras, the 331, whether they were put after the incident of Kinyua or after the 2015 incident. They were put after the 2015 incident. As of the issue about the issue of Eldoret, I think that is not a matter that is before the committee, and therefore I cannot be able to respond on that issue. And the Honorable Esther Passaris, while she was in South Africa, she asked me for the number of Dr. Sikilai. At that time, the CEO, Dr. Kamuri, had resumed, and I gave her the number. So I think there are other mechanisms which she can pursue to follow up and see how the family can be assisted. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, Passaris.
Mr. Speaker, you know, while I know that Parliament has immunity to discuss everything, I mean, I am definitely going to sit with Susan, the wife of the deceased, because what she told me that her husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and for me, whatever stage, whatever care that the hospital was providing, which we appreciate, the one thing that they needed to provide, which they never provide, was to keep the patient safe. In the state that he was in, somebody walked into that hospital, slit his neck.
Order, Esther Passaris. You know, you are not making statements of fact. The investigations are ongoing, and the statements you are making can easily prejudice those investigations. So be very measured in what you are saying, because you cannot say with finality what you are saying when the DCI is investigating a possible homicide. Yes, Bukose, just hold on, Esther.
The doctors who are attending to this patient, the diagnosis is Guillain-Barré syndrome. It is not Parkinson's disease. And that is confirmed by the acting CEO, Dr. Sikilai, and the medical doctors in the hospital. So it was not Parkinson's. And the patient was referred from St. Mary's Hospital with bed sores. That means wherever the patient was not moving. The patient was paralyzed and was in bed and developed wounds on pressure points. And therefore, when the patient was brought to Kenyatta, to Kenyatta with wounds or in the pressure points. And the Kenyatta did tracings and turning of the patient so that these wounds could be able to heal. And the patient was also on NG, nasogastric feeding, was being fed using a tube because the patient could not swallow. So he had to be assisted to feed. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Esther, you're done?
Mr. Speaker, you know, I stand here very disheartened because I hear one story from the family and another story from the chair of the committee. What I want to say is that we have a family that is in distress, a family that is in need, and it's not premature for us to start discussing compensation, especially since from the date the incident happened up to today, if the surveillance cameras were there, I can't understand why we have not made any arrests up to now. If you don't arrest somebody in the next 24 hours or 7 days, then you really have weakened your case. And I really feel that it's time for us to discuss compensation. And I hope that the chair will answer the other questions that were contained in the question, the main question, which include the other patients who have died in our referral facilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mukami, I notice you have a request for a statement on the same patient.
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
You may go ahead.